With part 7, my first concept was gain and sustain involvement on page 156. And it's defined as motivating your listeners to hear and accept the information you are about to present to them, have them recognize it, understand it, and make it relatable. This concept jumped out at me because involvement with your audience allows you to draw them in, and it's like having dangling something in front of them for them to continue to pay attention to. This concept is important to public speech because it shows you how to keep the audience involved without overwhelming things. It comes across very naturally, so the more that you practice it and practice involvement and adding small little tidbits in throughout your speech, it will continue to flow smoothly instead of seeming like it's all jumbled and overcomplicated. Just spitting out facts can be a little off-putting to people, so that's another reason that sustaining the involvement can be important. I decided to add in a demonstration about autisms to draw in my audience's involvement at the beginning of my speech, so that's how I included that concept in my speech. And my second concept is taking steps to reduce confusion. It's defined as new info being difficult to grasp, and you must find different strategies on how to communicate info clearly and be as helpful as possible. This concept jumped out at me because my topic can be very confusing as it's on autism, not autism, which gets very mixed a lot. So I feel that it is something that can be very confusing, and so drawing all of the confusion away and making sure that everything is defined properly throughout my speech will help me reduce some of that. This is important to public speech because being able to draw up ideas of how to relate information to something people may already know more about. So if people know what being deaf is, then autism is a little easier to connect with because deafness and autism work hand in hand with one another. In my speech, I plan to use an analogy to relate autism to the loss of hearing, maybe when someone's ears pop and their hearing becomes a little limited. So I want to use a little bit of play on that. And my third concept is arranging points into a pattern, and that is actually on page 162. It's defined as organizing your speech so that it is understandable and each point relates to one another. This concept jumped out at me because organization is extremely important when it comes to effective speech. It also helps you arrange your points so that you can cause clarity or you can cause a lot of confusion. So staying in an arranged pattern will keep you on track to have a successful speech. I feel each point should roll into one another naturally so they don't seem, like I said earlier, forced. This is an important concept to public speech because to many things in chronological order, topical order, or maybe even cause-effect order may be a little simpler for them to understand and follow along. This can help you stay organized and can deliver an effective speech, so it all kind of goes back to your effective speech. Personally, I used this in my speech to flow from what autism is to the history of it, to different types of autism, and then essentially to how we can prevent or try to prevent the spread of autism to further generations.